Thanks you guys, and hi everybody. My name is Brooke Reams, and I work in Esri's professional services department. So I work with our customers to develop custom apps with AppStudio, and I actually am also a Python developer, and that's how I got my start. So I just, I got into AppStudio with no development background other than just Python, and so I think you'll see from this introduction to QML just how easy it is to learn and understand QML code. This is really just going to be an introduction, and when we'll start to also kind of look at some core concepts. So the topics that we're going to cover. First, kind of an overview. I believe Erwin went over this last Thursday, like what is QML, some QML syntax. I'm just going to give a little refresher on that. Then we'll go into some core concepts like how to position your elements on the screen. We'll look at how JavaScript is used within QML, and we'll take a look at properties and signals, and then this concept of models, delegates, and views. And finally, we'll end on some key points, just kind of recap on what we discussed, and then look at some other QML types that you might be interested in when you start developing your apps. So first, just an overview. First, I want to talk about, for those of you who are familiar with web development, how is native app development with QML similar to web development with HTML? Well, both HTML and QML are declarative languages. So we're going to talk a little bit more on an upcoming slide about what a declarative language is, but it's a way to just easily it's an easier approach than the opposite, which is an imperative approach. So declarative languages tell what to do versus an imperative language tells how to do it. And again, we're going to take a look at exactly what that means in an upcoming slide. So both HTML and QML use JavaScript, the ECMAScript language specification 5, for writing the application logic, and both use asynchronous programming. Now, the differences between native app development with QML and web development with HTML is, first off, there's no property binding on the web. So with AppStudio and with QML, there's this concept of property binding where you can set the value of a property in one object equal to the value of a property in a different property in a different object. So when one object updates in your app, another object automatically updates as well. And we're going to look more at property binding coming up as well, but it's a really nice feature that makes app development so much easier. Also, JavaScript with QML doesn't use the document object model, or the DOM. So if you take a look at the two code snippets at the bottom of the slide, they're both doing the same thing. One is JavaScript in HTML, and the other is JavaScript for QML. So both are basically waiting for the application to load. When the application loads, they are both calling a hello function, a function called hello. And the code that's within that function is basically setting the text property of a text element to hello world. So I'm going to leave this on the screen for just a few seconds so you can kind of look at both and see the differences between the two. Okay. So what exactly is QML? Well, it stands for Qt Meta Language, and that Qt is spelled QT. A lot of people think it's pronounced QT, but it's actually pronounced Qt. And it's a JavaScript-based, again, declarative language for designing UI-centric apps. So let's talk a little bit about what is declarative and what is imperative. So declarative, again, describes what to do. So this is a QML snippet of code. And again, QML is declarative. So this is a declarative approach to coding. In this sample, we're creating a rectangle and we're setting it to 200 pixels wide by 500 pixels high. Now, if you compare that to an imperative approach, you'll see that it takes a lot more code to do the same thing. We're basically defining the length of every line that makes up this rectangle that's 200 by 500 pixels, and then calling the stroke method to actually draw the rectangle. So QML can be you can write QML code to accomplish the same things here that you can with an imperative approach, just with a lot less code. So benefits of QML, well, the fact that you can write or develop an app with as little code as QML makes for quick prototyping. So, so if you need to come up with a quick sample or just a quick prototype, that's really easy to do with QML. It also supports beautiful transitions and animations. You have the ability to create components, so basically reusable pieces of code. So you might develop a certain piece of functionality in one app, and you can easily componentize that and reuse it in a different app. Again, there's this concept of property binding, so setting the value of one property in one object equal to the value of some other property in a different object. In QML, we have signals, and those are basically events. And so within a signal is where you write your application logic, which is your JavaScript. So, QML is developed, or apps with AppStudio are developed with both QML and JavaScript. So if you are a web developer or you have JavaScript experience, developing mobile apps will be that much easier for you. And then finally, QML is backed by native C++. So the code actually runs really fast and really efficiently. So let's take a look at some QML syntax. So like most languages, what you're going to see at the top is always going to be your import statements. So that's importing libraries, such as the one that you see here in this code snippet, which is just a library that gives us access to some basic objects, like in this case, rectangle and text object. You can also import JavaScript files that maybe have JavaScript functions defined or other directories. Now, if you're familiar at all with JSON, QML is going to look extremely familiar to you because it is a JSON-like tree structure with objects, and those objects have attribute value pairs. So in the case that the sample that you see here on the screen, we have objects for a rectangle and a text object, and the attribute value pairs, the attributes are actually known as properties in QML. So the arrow there is pointed to the text property of the text object. Now, if we were actually to run this code snippet, what do we have here? We have a rectangle that is 400 pixels wide by 400 pixels high. And you can see there's a text object nested within the rectangle. And that text object is centered within its parent, which is the rectangle. So it'll be centered in the rectangle. It has a font point size of 20. And the text value says hello world. So when we run this, this is what this code snippet looks like. So let's talk a little bit about QML and JavaScript. So again, QML constructs the UI, whereas JavaScript constructs the application logic. So here we have a sample, and this actually is the one that, it's very similar to the one that Erwin just showed as he was talking about debugging. So we have a rectangle object that's green when the app first launches, and that rectangle is, again, 400 pixels by 400 pixels. We have a button that's nested within that rectangle. It's, again, centered in the rectangle. The button says change color. And when the button is clicked, the color, there's JavaScript code. So there's a signal. In QML, it's called a signal. So we have a signal handler called onClicked, and that's where we have our JavaScript code. So we're just checking, we have a condition to check what is the color of the rectangle. If it's green, change it to red, and if it's not green, change it to green. And so, just like Erwin showed in the app, this is how that code snippet looks if you were to run it. So not a lot of people have heard of QML, but it's actually used in a lot of different applications that we're familiar with in our everyday lives. The dashboards of newer cars, that's typically QML. That's showing you maybe your speed or your current gas efficiency. Also, when you click the menu button or the settings button on your remote of your TV, and you get the menu that pops up that gives you all the options for your TV, color, sound, that kind of thing. That's typically QML. And Google Earth was actually built with Qt. So QML has a very large presence, even though it's not really widely known about. Okay, so I want to kind of explain, there's a about 6 or so files that get created when you create a new project in AppStudio. And so I want to take this opportunity to just kind of explain each of those files that gets created. So the first is the appicon.png. So create a new project in AppStudio, a folder gets created, and it has several files in it already. And one of those is the appicon.png, and that's the icon image of your app that's seen by the user on their device. So when somebody actually downloads your app and they access it from their phone, the app icon is the image that they see to access the app. A file called appinfo.json also gets created within that project file, and that is a file that contains information about your app, such as the global properties. So that could include the capabilities of your device. Maybe your device uses location or local storage or Bluetooth. So that sort of information is stored in the appinfo.json file. There's another JSON file called item info, and this is a file that's specific to your ArcGIS Online organization for that app. So the app's item ID, the username of the person that created the app, who it's shared with, the date it was created, the date it was modified, the version, all that information is stored in the iteminfo.json. And both appinfo.json and iteminfo.json can be edited using a nice user interface by clicking the settings button. So you don't need to go in and manually change those files and accidentally, have a typo that might mess things up. You can just use this easy to use user interface. Also, a file called myapp.qml gets created, and this is just the main file that contains the root QML object. So when you first run your app, the myapp.qml page is the first page of code that is run. There's also a myapp.qml project. The QML project file is specific to the Qt editor and just tells the Qt editor where the location of all your files for your project are located. And finally, a thumbnail.png file gets created, and that is the image that gets added to your app when you upload it to ArcGIS Online or Portal. It can be the same image as the appicon.png, or it can be different. So there's an option there to have a different image for the app as an item in ArcGIS Online. Okay, so let's work on a hands-on exercise. And what I want to do in this exercise is first kind of show you the AppStudio desktop application. I think you've kind of already seen it a little bit from the work that Erwin did this morning. But I also want to show you how to create a new app. And we're going to create a new app that does the following. So we're going to create a nice landing page when the app is launched with just a toolbar and a tool button. That tool button kind of looks like a menu button, and when the user clicks the menu button, it's going to open up this little drawer. And this is one of 3 hands-on exercises, so that the other 2 will actually build on this first one. So I have, so Chris and Erwin, I uploaded some hands-on exercise zip file up to the shared drive.
Yep.
Do the users have access to that?
Yes. So
okay.
I can share the link again, but it's the same link that we've been using, s3url.com AppStudio Workshop.
Okay. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes to download the file that we're going to be using. So the hands-on exercise is something that you all can follow along with me as I do it live here on my machine. But inside of the zip file are some images that we're going to need for the development, and it also contains the completed code. So the code that we're actually going to write inside the zip file is that same code for all 3 hands-on exercises. So if you miss something, you can, you have that code here in the zip file. So let me give everybody a couple minutes to download this zip file. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a new app. So when you have the AppStudio for ArcGIS desktop application open, what you see here is items. So all of these are items that either I've developed, they're apps that either I've developed or someone else in my ArcGIS online organization has developed and shared with me or the organization. So I can create a new app by clicking on the New App button. And when I do that, you can see I've got several different templates that I can start from. So instead of starting from scratch, I can choose from one of the 3 starter templates. There's one of the nicest things about this that I really like is the samples. So with the samples, you can see a very specific piece of functionality, specifically runtime functionality, which is really helpful when you're getting started and trying to learn how to develop apps, especially apps that are using runtime. So this is a really great place to start, and to look for a sample if you're needing to do some specific piece of GIS functionality within your app. For this demo, I'm actually just going to start with one of the starter templates, the most basic of them all. So if I click the starter tab and then go with the very first starter template in this tab is called app. So I'll just go over to the title option and give this a name. I'm going to call mine QML Demo 1. We're going to have 3 total. You can call it whatever you'd like. Actually, I'll just call it demo because we're just gonna build on to this app. So for all 3 demos, we're gonna be using the same one. So I'll just call it QML demo, and then I'll click create. And so now you can see I have a new item in my gallery, the one that I just created. I can go to the settings if I wanted to, update any of those global properties about what capabilities this app is going to use, that sort of thing. If I click on the Files button, that will actually open the project file that contains all those files that we just kind of talked about. There is one here that I neglected to mention. This is kind of newer since the slide was created. And this one just gives the ability to use material design. But what I want to do is, once you've created this new app and you have it in your gallery, if you click on the Files button to open the project folder, what I want everybody to do is take the images folder. So of the zip file that you downloaded from the shared drive, if you unzip that file, you'll see a folder called Images. And I want you to copy this images folder from the zip folder and put it right in the project folder. So this images folder contains some PNGs that we're going to be using to develop this app that, just like the menu button, an info, button, close button, and then some squares that are going to represent some apps. So as we continue on with this hands-on exercise, as we continue on with the presentation, we'll be utilizing these other images. So again, just to reiterate, we're going to take the images folder within the zip file that you downloaded from the shared drive, copy that entire folder, and paste it directly into the project folder of the new app that we just created in AppStudio. Okay, So now that we have that, the next thing I want to do is, with this new app still highlighted in my gallery, I'm going to click on the Edit button. So I have this Edit button over here on the right-hand side of my desktop application. And when I click that, it's going to open this app that I just created in Qt Creator. So I'm going to be able to see the code. So here it is. So we have, our library is imported at the top. And then the next thing that we see here is this app container. And this is just something that's specific to AppStudio. All the apps that you develop with AppStudio will contain this app container that your code will live within. And then we have a width and a height defined. That really is only specific to when the app is running on a desktop. When it runs on a mobile device, such as a phone or a tablet, the app will take up the entire width and height of the screen, just like any other app that you run on your mobile device. And then the next thing we have here is just, this is the most basic of the samples. So all we have in this very basic sample is a text element. And what I want to do is just kind of show you this concept of property binding. So for this is just a quick little demo. Don't worry about following along. This isn't part of the hands-on exercise. I just want to kind of show you, how property binding works and kind of explain what I mean by that. So,
Brooke, can you increase the size of your code, the font size of your code a little bit? Perfect. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let me get rid of this stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just change out what the text element says. So currently it just says my app, and I want to change that. I'm going to use property binding. So I'm going to bind the width of my app to the text property of my text element. And that's all I want to do. I'm going to save this and run it. So click run. And sure enough, when the app launches, we get what we expect, right? We see that this app is 400 pixels wide. Well, this concept of property binding allows us to see an update, two objects when a value of one property in one object is changed, so is the value in the other. So if our width changes, we should expect to see that the value of the text will also change. So if I extend the width of this app, so this is property binding. We can see that the width, or that the text changes to reflect the app's width. So that was one of the differences between development on the web versus development in AppStudio, is this concept of property binding. So I just wanted to explain what I meant by that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with our hands-on exercise. So again, we wanted to create just a simple app that has a blank page with a toolbar and a tool button. And when you click that tool button, it opens up a drawer, like a menu button. So I am going to go ahead and remove the text element. So if I select the little curly bracket at the end of the text element and just remove that, I still have my app and the curly open and close bracket that goes along with that. So I want to make sure that I have my right syntax here and not delete any extra brackets than what I need. So I'm first going to define a page. And a page is one of the Qt Quick Controls 2.0, or 2.x, I should say. And I've provided a text file in the zip file that gives a URL to the help topic for all the different components that we're going to use in this hands-on exercise. But I just kind of want to show you the various controls that we have access to here. And we're going to be using a number of them in this hands-on exercise. The first is the page. And the page is just a control that provides us the ability to create a header very easily. So this is where we'll put our toolbar. It also, makes it very nice and easy to create a footer. Maybe this could be like a tab bar at the bottom. We're not actually going to use a footer in this particular demo, but I just kind of want to explain the page and show you where the help topic is in QML. And again, there is in that zip file that I provided, there is a text file called Qt Quick Controls doc URLs, and I've put the URL for each of the components that we're going to be using in this exercise right here in this text file so that you can refer back to these later on. Okay, so let's go back to the code. And so within this page, I'm going to say that I want this page to fill the entire app. So we're going to talk about anchors coming up, but for now, just go ahead and roll with me here with anchors.fill, and we're going to fill the parent with the page. Now, I wanted to have a toolbar at the top of this app. And so, I mentioned when we were looking at the doc that there is this nice header property that gives us the ability to create a very simple header. And so for the header, I'm going to use a toolbar component. And this is another one of those components that's under the Qt Quick Controls 2.x. So toolbar, we can see here, is also one of those components. And if you're interested in learning more about this, then definitely encourage you to take a look at the help topic after the demo. But toolbar has many properties that we can utilize that make it easy for us to develop a nice looking toolbar with some tool buttons. One of the properties is let's see. Well, first I'm going to give it a width. So I want to say I want this toolbar to take on the same width as the app. So I set the width property of the toolbar to the width of the parent, which is the app. So again, we're using property binding here. I'm going to give it a height of 56 pixels. And then I also want to give this toolbar a color. Now, I wasn't on the call or the workshops last week, so I'm not sure if you all have talked about material design. Erwin, Chris, have you all touched on that at all?
Not really.
Not
No.
yet.
We might have mentioned it briefly, but no, we haven't really gone into it. No.
Okay, so material design is a design standard that was developed by Google, and is just there's a library in QML that we have access to that makes it very easy for us to abide by the material design standards. And the library that we need to import in order to access those material design components is called Qt Quick Controls Material. So I'm going to import a new library so that we can use this functionality. So I'll say import Qt Quick .controls, and then all the way at the bottom, the most recent material library, qtquick.controls.material 2.3. So if you've got it highlighted in the IntelliSense or the help here, once it's highlighted, if you just click the tab button, it'll auto-complete, so that library gets added to your page, to your code. Okay, so in my toolbar, under the height, I'm going to set the color of this toolbar. So there is a property of the material library called background, and we'll set that to material.deep-orange. So one of the nice things about using material colors is with material design, you can also go from light mode to dark mode, kind of like, if you ever used Google Maps at night, you notice that as soon as the sun sets, Google Maps kind of goes into a dark mode where it becomes, the background image or the background base map becomes black versus during the day, it's light. And so that is something that we have access to with QML using the material design library. And when we use these material colors and we change the theme from light to dark, the functionality of changing the colors is automatically handled for us. Okay, and I'm just going to save this, and we don't have a whole lot here, but just to show you what it looks like right now, I'm going to go ahead and click the play button to run this. And there it is, just a very simple, nice and neat looking app with just a toolbar. It's kind of material design library already provides this nice little drop shadow for us. So it handles a lot of the work behind the scenes that we don't have to actually write the code to create this. So with not very much code, we already have something, pretty nice looking. So I'm going to continue on. The next thing that I want to do under the material.background property is I want to define a tool button. And a tool button is another one of those cute quick controls from 2.x that you have the URL for in that text file. So a tool button has an indicator property, which allows us to provide an image. So I'm going to define the indicator as an image. And within that image, I'm going to set some properties. So first, I want to set the width of the image. And I don't want the image to take up the entire width of the tool button. I only want it to take up a little bit. So I'm actually going to set the width equal to the parent.width times 0.6. So it's only 60% width of the actual tool button itself. So this is the image. This is the actual little menu button image that you're going to see. And I'm going to do the same with the height. So I'm going to set the height equal to the parent.height. And again, make it 60% of the height. So I'll multiply that by 0.6. And we're going to anchor this image within the tool button itself. So anchors.center and parent. And finally, we need to set the source of this image. And this is an image that you copied over from the zip file. And we can set the source. If you copied the folder over, the folder name is images. And we'll put in a /. And then we're going to use the menu.png. Okay, so now we've got the tool buttons indicator defined. And the next thing I want to do is anchor the tool button itself within the toolbar. So just outside of my curly bracket that ends the image, I'm going to hit enter. So I'm still within my tool button, but outside of my image. I'm going to define some anchors for the tool button. So I want this button, the tool button to be anchored to the left of the toolbar and also in the vertical center of the toolbar. Now I don't want it to be at the very, very left, at the edge of the screen. I want to give it a little bit of a sort of a buffer. So I'm going to define the margins property of the anchor and just set it to 8 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save my code. So it's easier for me if I just click Control S. I'm on Windows, so less mouse clicks for me. So I just do Control S, and then I'll go ahead and run this so you can see.
Where do you click it on the page?
Where do I click the run?
To save and to run.
So to save, I do Control S on my keyboard, or you can go up to File and choose Save All, either way. Or just save. So Control S is save on mine. It's not highlighted because it's already saved. And then to run it, there's a couple different ways. The way that I'm used to is the way that you used to do it before we had the debugging capability, which on Windows is a combination of the keys Alt-Shift-R. Now the easier way to do it, now that we have the debugging within Qt Creator, is to just click the play button. So either way. And it looks like there's a shortcut for the run, which is just Control
Sorry,
R.
I'm just not seeing your mouse. Where is the play button? Down
Over here on the left hand near the bottom.
Thanks.
Okay, so when I run this, I now have the toolbar with a tool button, and we have that image, which is just these 3 bars here. And when I click on the tool button, nothing actually happens because we haven't programmed it to do anything yet. So that's what we'll do next. When we click on this tool button, we want a menu page to open up here like a drawer from the left-hand side. So the next thing that I want to do is just define the drawer component. And drawer is another one of those cute, quick controls components. And there is a URL for the help topic within the text file for the drawer. So I want to first kind of see where my page ends. So if I click on the cursor right next to my curly bracket on the page, I can see, okay, it ends down here. I want to create this drawer outside of the page component. So within my app still, but outside of the page. So outside of the page, I'm going to create the drawer. Now, we're going to have, when the button is clicked, we're going to open this drawer. So we need to have access to it. So I'm going to give it an ID so we can call it later on in our code. So I'm going to give it an ID, just call it drawer menu. You can give it whatever ID that you prefer, just as so long as you use that same ID whenever you reference this drawer anywhere else in your code. I want to give this drawer a width of 65% of the parent's width, of the app's width. So I'll define it parent.width times 0.65. And I want it to be the same height as my parent, as the app. So I'm going to define the height as parent.height. So by default, a drawer doesn't display until it's actually opened somewhere in the code. And we know we want to open this drawer when the user clicks on the tool button. So within the tool button, there is a signal called clicked. And we're going to use the onClicked signal handler to write one line of JavaScript code that's going to open this drawer. So we want to do that within the tool button. So just after the anchors, so still within my tool button, but after the anchors, I want to define the onClicked signal handler. And a signal handler looks like this. The syntax is the name of the signal, so onClicked with a colon and then brackets. And whatever your application logic is for when the button is clicked is written in JavaScript, and it's written within this onClicked event, so within those curly brackets. And so when the button is clicked, what do we want to do? We want to open the menu that we, or the drawer that we defined just below. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. Control S on my machine and then click the play button to run it. And now when we click on the menu button, we can see that we get a drawer that comes in from the left-hand side. And if you read the URL or the documentation and the URL that I sent for the drawer, you can see that by default, it opens from the left-hand side of the page, but you can change that. So you have access to many different properties of the drawer that you can change the look and the feel. Also, you can see that it automatically dims the rest of the app. So that's one of the nice functionalities that's provided by this component. Okay, so that is the end of our first hands-on exercise. What we're going to do is go through a few more slides about QML and then build on this current app with some more, some more detail. Okay. And if there are any questions, if anybody wants to ask out loud, or Erwin, are you monitoring the chat?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, yeah, if anybody has any questions that they want to just ask out loud, feel free. If you want to put your question in the chat, then Erwin will answer that.
Excuse me, Brooke. Just a quick question, please.
Sure.
How do you auto-format the code in QML?
Yeah, so what you can do is select all. So on Windows, that would be Control A. That would select all your code, and then Control I actually formats it all. So Control A to select it all, and then Control I reformats it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hey, what if you wanted to put a minimum width on that drawer? Like instead of always using, the percentage, can you set a minimum width on that?
Yes, you can. So what you could do is, I believe it's min, is that right? Or
Math.min.
Math.min, okay. Yeah, so here you would put in, so if you wanted it to always be at least
something, yeah.
Yeah, something, it would choose
whichever is smaller, yeah.
Right, yeah, whichever is the smaller.
Perfect.
Or yeah,
Max,
same with max, yeah, right, yeah.
Yep, got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Brooke, I have one question.
Yep.
I'm getting rates usually line under source and anchors, so I don't know.
You said you're getting an error with the anchors?
Yeah, anchors and source as well.
Okay, do you know if it's the anchors from your tool button?
It's showing invalid property name anchors.
Yeah, it might be outside the tool button, I think.
Yeah, you want to make sure that the anchors are within the tool button. So within the curly brackets of the tool button.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
And source is inside the tools button, but still it is throwing error.
Inside an image.
Inside.
Image. Indicator image.
Yep. So I want to make sure the source is inside the image.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you have if anybody has any other errors like that, if you want, you can go to the zip file, and this same code that I've written here, you can compare your version with what's under the QML demo 1. So that contains the same code that I've written here. It's in myapp.qml. If you're having any issues, just feel free to compare your code to what's in there.
Brooke, if we did not put the images beforehand, can we do it now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So you can copy the image. You're talking about the image folder?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So you can copy that image folder. It's right here at the root level of the zip file. You can copy that right into the project folder.
Okay, can I do it Control-C, Control-V?
Yep. Yeah, it's just through your file explorer. So you're going to copy this images folder into the folder containing your project. So to get to your project folder, you can do that from the AppStudio desktop, right? So you can just, with your app highlighted here, click on the Files button, and that's going to open the project folder. You can just paste that images folder right into there.
Thank you.
Sure.
The tool button width is not really 400 by 0.6, because if you write this number, you get a different result.
The tool button width. So we, in our sample here, we didn't define the width of the toolbar. The tool button, we just used the default. Not sure if that answers your question. Let me know.
So the width is the width of the image, not the tool button.
Yeah, so you want to set the width of the image within the tool button. Yeah. Yep.
Hi.
Excuse me, bro.
I can wait.
Bro?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there any specific width or height for the image or the icon specified? Because as we see, because it's at parent.width and it's about 65% of it.
Yeah. So in this case, we just used the default width and height of the tool button. That's just defined within the component itself. If you wanted to change the height of that tool button, I believe you could do that. You would just define your own width here, right? Like you would with any other of our components. But the tool button does have a default width that I believe conforms to material design standards. And Erwin,
so basically this indicator is the...
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so the indicator is the is only for the image, right?
Yeah, it can take an item, and so image it's an item, so it can take an image. So, but you can take any item.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hi, Brooke.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. I was attempting to do that math but I noticed that when I type in lowercase math, the IntelliSense didn't pop up. It seems like I have to type in uppercase. But if I didn't know that, I would have known that, math needs to be in uppercase.
That is just JavaScript, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just JavaScript syntax. You know how I discovered it the first time is just through Google. So you're right. Yeah. Sometimes, like how do you know about the different components or the different capabilities? It's just something that you learn over time. It seems overwhelming at first, but the more you write code and develop apps, like the more it's just you start to remember. And even though I couldn't remember, was like, is it min, right? I couldn't remember.
Right. Yeah, I guess I was more familiar with the Visual Studio, where the IntelliSense will work no matter what. It will pop up to tell you that it's math, and you can just see that it's capitalized versus not popping up at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the IntelliSense is working the way it should versus
it is. Yeah,
it's
not as robust as it is. Yeah. You have to. Yeah, it's case sensitive.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Question about the import statements.
Yes.
So I noticed when you added the material library, I was looking at the qtquick.controls, and there's a whole bunch of different versions of that, but 2.1.3 doesn't show up in the IntelliSense. And I'm just kind of curious if there's a short answer to, like, how do you choose the version, and are you trying to match that to something in your app, or?
Yeah, so I could probably answer that question. The 2.13 actually implies the version of the Qt that is installed in AppStudio. If you have 4.2, we have 5.13. So that means you can use up to 2.13, but you can use 2.12, 2.11. But that's the latest that we have, and we want to try to use the latest ones to get all of the functionality and then all of the maybe bug fixes that it has.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, all good questions. Anything else?
Hi, Brooke. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, just a quick one. I missed, sorry, at the very beginning of your demo. Did you just start with a empty app?
Yeah, so what I did was I went into the AppStudio desktop application and clicked New App, and I just went with the starter template, the most basic one right here. So I clicked on that, gave it a name, clicked Create, and then what happened is that when I opened up the Qt Creator, so again, the way you do that is, with the app highlighted, you click on the Edit button. That opens up the Qt Creator with your app's code. There was just a text element within the app container, and I removed that and put in the code that you see here.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, I followed along with that assumption and it all worked out.
Okay, good, sure.
Hi, I have a small question also.
Okay.
I didn't have any error message, but I couldn't see my drawer menu in the left.
You couldn't see your drawer menu?
Yeah.
Try to do a thing where it's like questions
So,
as we go.
yeah, so for your drawer, you want to make sure that you have the drawer defined outside of the page. So it could be that it's within your page. You want to make sure that it's after the curly brackets of your page. And then also make sure that, the width and height, so make sure that the width and height, they're set correctly like you see them here. And then the only other thing would be to make sure that you have your on-clicked signal handler with the drawer open method defined here.
Okay, let me try. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and definitely, if you still need help with that, you can refer back to this is in the zip file, this completed version of the hands-on exercises in QML demo 1.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the rest, or the next set of slides, and then we'll build on to this this app. So let me pull up the slides.